How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Mem Vav, Daf 46 of Masechta Gittin. Friends, what do you want me to tell you? Daf Mem Vav talks about if a guy gets divorced, can he get remarried to that same woman? Of course, Mikra didn't, yes, but the question is, what were the circumstances of the divorce? All right, Babylon, those Babylons really come out of left field, you know? Oh, man. All right. Let's do it. All right. We're going to sign Daf Memheim with base at the Mishnah, about 10 lines from the bottom or so. Hamotzi es ishto mishum shemra. Lo yachzu mishum nedo lo yachzir. Oh. So it says the Tanakame that if a fellow divorces his wife because he's hearing rumors. He was speaking to one of the Yentis on Shabbos afternoon. She was drinking Diet Coke and eating low-fat mandel bread, and she tells him, people are talking about your wife. We, the Yentis, think that your wife is having an affair. So, anyways, so he says, all right, and he divorces her. Alternatively, his wife makes a neder. She says she's not going to eat pizza anymore. He's like, all right, I can't be married to somebody who makes nedarim. So they get divorced. So in those two cases, amotzi es ishto mishum shema. So a fellow who divorces his wife because the Yentis was telling him rumors about her having an affair, liyachzir, so they can never get remarried. Mishum neder liyachzir. Alternatively, if or if because she says she's not eating pizza anymore, so he doesn't want to be married to somebody who makes nedarim, so then they can't get remarried. Now there are basically two ways to understand that. The Gemara is going to explain them, like what's the concern over here. What normally, of course, a fellow and a fella get divorced, they can get remarried as long as she hasn't married anybody else in the meantime. They can get divorced and remarried. Now, how come in this case not? So there's two concerns. One is what's called kilkul, right? So, for example, what happens if he tells his wife, "Look, I was talking to one of the Yentis, Shabbos afternoon, Diet Coke, low-fat mandel bread," and he says, "That's it, we're getting divorced." So she says, "All right," and they get divorced. She now marries somebody else. They have kids. And then he finds out that the Yenta's intel was inaccurate. And she actually didn't have an affair. And we're concerned that the husband is going to say, I knew I shouldn't have trusted the Yentis. And then that basically, it brings into question the whole divorce. The premises of the divorce. Was it, right? Maybe that wasn't a proper divorce. In which case, she is really, if she was never really then divorced from the first husband because of incorrect premises, incorrect. I'm forgetting words. I'm a little bit nervous about that. I'm like forgetting my vocabulary. Presumptions? Incorrect. I don't know. He made incorrect assumptions. So then she was never divorced from him because it wasn't a proper divorce. She was never divorced from him in the first place, which means that she couldn't marry the other guy because she was still married to the first guy. Her kids are mamzer. It creates a whole mess. So we say, look, if you divorce your wife because of shemra, there's no getting back together. Same thing with the neder. If he didn't realize that he could be mata the neder, and okay. Alternatively, it's just about that we don't want. What was it? What's the lotion? That we don't want bnos Yisrael to be busy with affairs or making nedarim. So therefore, it's sort of on principle that if you get divorced because of rumors of affairs or because of nedarim, that would as sort of like a stringency as a fine, because we want to avoid bnos Yisrael being prutzin barayus u'v'nedarim, so that if you get divorced on those grounds, you can't get remarried. Kind of just in order to sort of make it clear that that's something that's a whole sugya that we want to avoid. Okay. So Amotzias Ishto again. Amotzias Ishto Mishum Shemra. So somebody who gets divorced because of the yentis, Lo Yachzir, so they can't get remarried. Mishum Neder Lo Yachzir. Or because she's making vows about pizza, so they can't get remarried. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda, Kol Neder Sheyadu Bo Rabim. So Rabbi Yehuda says, well, it depends. If she makes a neder that lots of people know about, Lo Yachzir, so then they can't get remarried. But V'shelo Yadu Bo Rabim, but if they don't know about it, right? If not a lot of people know about it, Yachzir, they can get remarried. So Rabbi Yehuda is taking the position that it's about Shelo Yu Bnos Yisrael Prutzim B'Nedarim, right? That we don't want kind of this widespread Nedarim kind of stuff. So that's more of an issue if it's publicly known about. Maybe I should just stop trying to get the right word. Oh, maybe that's a good idea. Just like forget about getting the right word. Just like explain what you got to explain. That's probably a really good idea. But if not a lot of people know about it, so then, there isn't really so much of a concern about, all of B'nos Yisrael being Prutzim B'Nedarim. Nobody knew about it. So then it's not an issue and they can get remarried. Okay? Fine. Reb Meir Omer, this is Reb Meir, Kol neder shetzarech hakiras chochem lo yachzir, v'shenu tzarech hakiras chochem yachzir. So Reb Meir is concerned about kilkula. Reb Meir is concerned about them getting divorced on mistaken premises. I feel like premises is the right word, but I don't know that it is. But whatever, we'll just say it. I don't know, it's probably the wrong word, but it's probably a word that's close to it. So premises, but is premises the right word? Premises is like a location, but is false premises. But I feel like that's also a thing, false premises. Dagnabbit. So Reb Meir is concerned about the kilkula thing, right? So he says, look, any neder that needs chakir, right? Shetzarech chakiras chacham. What does it say? Reb Meir Omer kol neder shetzarech chakiras chacham. Any neder that you would have to get a taras nedarim by a chacham, lo yachzir. So if they were to get divorced because of some neder that he cannot be mefer, I don't know, maybe it's more than 24 hours or whatever. So if it would need chakiras chacham, so then they can't get remarried, because we don't want that she gets divorced, marries somebody else, they have kids, and then he says, oh, I didn't realize that I could have gone to a chacham to release it. If I would have known, we never would have gotten divorced. And then it creates a whole mess with mamzerim. So therefore, if it's a neder that needs a chakiras chacham, so then they can't get remarried. But if it's a neder that he could be mefer on his own, then if they get divorced because of it, then they would be able to get remarried, because a neder like that, there is no chance of like him saying, oh, I didn't realize that I could be made for it. Of course he knows he could be made for it. And if he gets divorced anyways, so they can get remarried, because there's no concern in that case that like later on down the road he's going to say, oh, I didn't realize I could be made for it, and she's already remarried and kids and mamzerim. Fine. Rabbi Lazar is also concerned about kilkula, but he says fakert. He kind of says it the other way around. That he says, no, really, the chakiras chacham thing, that actually isn't a concern. We're going to see in the Gemara, because Rabbi Lazar holds that a fellow would not go with his wife anyways to be matir neder by a chacham, because he doesn't want his wife to be in bezdin. Right? Whatever, he doesn't want his wife going to court for whatever reason. So therefore that's not actually a concern, right? So if it needs chakiras chacham, he wouldn't be matir it anyways. So that's not something that we're concerned about. But we are concerned that maybe he doesn't know that he himself could be made for the neder. So Rabbi Lazar says that if it is a neder that does not require chakiras chacham, that he himself could be made for, then they cannot get remarried, because we're concerned that down the road she'll get, if they get divorced, she'll get remarried, she'll have kids, and then he'll say, oh, I didn't realize that I could be made for it. Reb Meir is not concerned about that. Reb Meir says no, he'll know that he can be made for it, and if he chooses to get divorced on that kind of a neder, they can get remarried, because he knows that he can be made for it. Down the line, he won't say, oh, I didn't know I could be made for it. That's Reb Meir. Reb Elazar says, we are concerned that he'll say, I didn't know that I could be made for it, and therefore we're concerned that if she gets remarried and she has kids, so then later on down the road, he'll say, oh, I didn't realize I could be made for that neder. I wouldn't have gotten divorced if I knew, and it can create problems. And then he says, lo asur, is that what he say? Amr blaz lo asur zeh elu mipnei zeh. That the only reason why they say that a neder that requires a chakiras chacham, they cannot get remarried, is only really out of concern for a neder that does not require a chakiras chacham. That because you can't get remarried for a neder that does not require chakiras chacham, that he can make for himself. So also we say that they can't get remarried if it's a neder that requires chakiras chacham. Amr Yosef Bar Yehuda, says Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda, Maise b'Tzidon, there was a Maise in Sidon, be'echad she'omer le'ishto, a fellow says to his wife, Konam im eini megarshich, if I don't divorce you, then I'm never eating pizza again. I'm going to divorce you. Ve'gersha, and he divorced her. Ve'itiru lo chachamim, she'achzirena, and the rabbis permitted them to get remarried, mipnei tikkun olam, because of tikkun olam. The Gemara is going to ask, Mainin Shmita Eitzel Asina, that's basic. That Mainin Shmita Eitzel Asina is a yeshivish way to say, where did this come from? What does it have to do with anything? Because up until now we've been talking about her making a neder. Now we're talking about him making a neder. Okay, the Gemara is going to ask, Mainin Shmita Eitzel Asina. The Gemara doesn't say those words. I'm just trying to be funny. It's a good joke. Alright. But meaning, like, what does that have to do with anything? Where did it come from? Alright. Yeah. I feel like I can use another coffee. It's 6:30 in the morning. I've already had 2 coffees. I would have made a third coffee, but it takes time to make coffee, and I just wanted to jump in. But I feel like I'm not fully awake yet, but awake enough. I don't think that I've said anything too wrongly yet. Alright. Now says the Gemara, Rav Yosef bar Manyomi, says Rav Yosef bar Manyomi, Omer of Nachman, V'husha Omar lo mishum shemra ani meitziech. So when we say in the Mishnah that if a fellow gets divorced because of the Yentis, the Yentis Shabbos afternoon, they said to him that there's rumors about his wife having an affair. So V'husha Omar, so if he says to her, Mishum shema ani motziech, I am divorcing you because of the rumors that I heard from the Yentis. Mishum neder ani motziech, or I am divorcing you because of the neder you made about eating pizza. Kosover taima. So the reason is my time of my. How come they can't get remarried? Mishum kilkula, because of kilkula, that if down the road he then realizes, wait, the Yentis were wrong, she didn't have an affair, or if he didn't realize that he could just be made for the neder, so then it basically invalidates the divorce. She in the meantime got remarried to somebody who now retroactively she couldn't have gotten remarried to, because she was really married to the first guy the whole time. Children are mamzer, creates a mess. So if he says to her that, I'm divorcing you because of this rumor, or I'm divorcing you because of this neder, so then they can't get remarried, because if the neder turns out he didn't realize that it could be made for the neder, or if it turns out that she didn't have an affair, then it'll create problems retroactively. Okay? Ikidamri, there are those who say, Omer of Yosef bar Manyomi, Omer of Nachman, says of Yosef bar Manyomi in the name of Nachman, Tzarich sheyomar lo, he needs to say to her, Hevi yodas, you should know, shemishum shemra ani motziech, that the reason why I am divorcing you is because of the rumors about you. Mishum neder ani motziech, or I am divorcing you because of the nedarim that you make. So kasover time amai kedei shelo yu bnos yisrael putzas barais uven nedarim. So in this case, it's a little different, right? He's saying that, meaning he's taking a position, a position of principle, right? He's saying that you should know that the reason why I'm divorcing you is because of the rumors or because of the nedarim. So in that case, so that's why they can't get divorced, because it's about that he's, on principle, he's saying, I don't want to be married to somebody who there are rumors happening about, or being spread about, being talked about, or somebody who makes nidarim, and therefore, they can't, right? Hachi has to say, like this, that he's kind of divorcing her on principle, and then they can't get remarried. Okay? Tanik Lishna Kama, Tanik Lishna Basra. We have a brisa like the first way, that it's about kilkula, and we have a brisa supporting the second approach, which is that it's about Shelo Yubnos Yisrael Prutzis Barayus of Nidarim. Tanik Lishna Kama. We have a brisa like the first approach. Amr Meir says, Mipnema Amru Hamotzias Ishto Mishum Shemra. How come they said that a fellow who divorces his wife because of Shemra, Lo Yachzir, that they can't get married if they get divorced, they can't get remarried if they get divorced because of the rumors, or if they get divorced because of nidarim, they can't get remarried. Because we're concerned that maybe she'll then go get married to a different fellow, right? And then it will turn out that these things weren't true, that the Yentis got it wrong, or that he'll realize that he could be made for the neder. He didn't know that. And he'll say, if only I would have known that the Yentis were wrong, or if only I would have known that I could be made for the neder. Even if they would have given me a ton of money, no way, no how, I would not have gotten divorced. It was a mistake. V'nimtza get bottle, and what will happen is the get apparently was not a good get. And then any children that she had with this new husband are mamzerim. Big problem. Therefore we say to the fellow, look fellow, you should know, therefore we say, hey fellow, if you divorce your wife because of shemra or because of the nidarim, you cannot get remarried. Don't even think about it. And therefore we avoid any kind of situation where he says, if only I would have known, I wouldn't have done it. He says, look, this is final. Okay. Tanik Lishna Basa, we have a brisa supporting the second approach. Amr Abelazar, B'Biosim, Pnima Amru, Hamotzias Ishto, Mishum Shemra, Lo Yachzir, Mishum Neder Lo Yachzir. How can we say that a fellow who gets divorced because of Shemra, because of the Yentis, or because of Nidarim, they can't get remarried? Shelo Yubnos Yisrael Prutzis Barayus of Nidarim. Because we don't want Bnos Yisrael to be Prutzis Barayus of Nidarim, and therefore if a couple gets divorced based on that, it's final and they can't get remarried. Therefore we say to him, Emor lo Seter Haviyodash Mishum Shemra Ani Motziach Mishum Neder Ani Motziach. You should know that the reason why we're getting divorced is because there are rumors spreading about you, or because you're making too many neders. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, says Rabbi Yehuda, Kol neder sheyadubo rabim, that if it's a neder that lots of people knew about, we'll see in a minute how much rabim is. Lo yachzir, they can't get remarried. V'shelo yadubo rabim yachzir. But if people didn't know about it, so then they can get remarried. Omer B'Shua ben Levi, my time with Rabbi Yehuda. How come Rabbi Yehuda says that a neder that was made in front of many people cannot be reverted? The Chsiv, as the pasuk says, "V'lohikum b'nei Yisrael kinishbu loim nisei ha'eda." That it says by the Givonim, the people that tricked Yoshua into getting a peace treaty. So it says "V'lohikum b'nei Yisrael," that the Yidden didn't smite them. Ki nishbu loim, because they swore to them nisei ha'eda, because the heads of the Ada, not like congregation. I don't know, the people. Basically, because they made a shvua in front of a lot of people. So you see that in this case a shvua, but I guess we're applying it to neder as well. That happens in front of many people, cannot be undone, and that's why the Givonim got away with their ploy. And for Rabbanon, hasu michal shvua ilavayu, to which the rabbis say, what? That has nothing to do with a neder happening in front of 10 people, because if you think about it, michal shvua ilavayu, there was never any shvua because it was made under false pretenses. Now that is a word. False pretenses. Ha ha. That is the word I was thinking of. Pretenses. Not premises. Premises? Does premises work? Probably not. But it feels like it almost does. I'm still not sure that premises doesn't work. That was a double negative. Alright, I should probably just keep going weiter. Alright, the rabbi say, look, I mean, that has nothing to do with a shvua happening in front of a lot of people. Klal, Kevin de Amru, since they said, Kevin de Amru, since the Givonim falsely said, we come from a faraway place, but they didn't actually come from a faraway place. Their klal, their whole shvua was never actually a real shvua because it was based on lies. Okay, so then why did the Yidden spare them? Mishum kedushas Hashem, so that there shouldn't be a chil Hashem, right? That they shouldn't say that the Yidden are going back on their shvua. So even though the fact of the matter is it really wasn't shvua because they were lied to. Okay, v'chama rabim. Now it says that right? Was it kinishbu lehem nisiya? Was it v'loikum b'nei Yisrael kinishbu lehem nisiya? Wait, what? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, right? Rabbi Yehuda said in the Mishnah, that if a lot of people know about it, then they can't get remarried. How much is considered a lot of people? Rav Nachman Omer Gimel. Rav Nachman says 3 people is considered a lot of people. Rabbi Yitzchak Omer Asar. Rabbi Yitzchak says 10 people. Rav Nachman Omer Gimel Yomim Beis Rabim Gimel. Rav Nachman says that Rabim is 3 because by a Zova, right? What does it say by a Zova? It says V'isha ki Yosef Zovdama Yomim Rabim. That a Zava who sees dam outside of the period of nida, so if it's when it says in the pasuk yomim, that means 2 days in a row. Rabim means 3 days in a row. So Rabim therefore means 3. So Rabbi Yitzchak Omar Asar Dichsev Eda. Rabbi Yitzchak says it means 10 because it says V'loikum b'nei Yisrael kinish b'olem nisiyeh ha'eda. And Eda admosa ha'eda aro azos. Admosa le'eda aro azos by the Meraglim, and that was 12 of them minus Yoshua and Kalev, so that's 10. Fine. Reb Meir Omer, kol neder shetzarich v'chulei. Okay, so we had seen in the Mishnah a machlokas between Reb Meir and Reb Elazar. That Reb Meir, right, both Reb Meir and Reb Elazar were concerned about kilkula. That the reason why by a neder, if they get divorced because of a neder, they can't get remarried. Both Reb Meir and Reb Elazar agree because we're concerned that if he would have known that the neder could be undone, then he never would have gotten divorced in the first place, and then we're concerned if she got remarried and had kids. But Reb Meir had said that we're concerned that specifically in a situation where it was a neder that needed to have a Torah in front of a chacham. That in that case, Reb Meir says we're concerned that maybe he didn't know that he could do that. He didn't know that he can go with his wife to a chacham to get the vow annulled. And therefore we're concerned that down the road he'll say, if only I would have known. But in terms of a neder that he himself could be mefer, that we're not concerned about. Whereas Rabbi Elazar says, I'm not concerned about nedarim that you would have to go to a bezdin for. I'm concerned about nedarim that he himself could be mefer, that he wouldn't know that he could be mefer them. So says the Gemara, Reb Meir Omer, kol neder shetzarich v'chulei. So Tanya, Rabbi Elazar Omer, lo asu tzarich elam pnei she'eino tzarich. Whereas Rabbi Elazar said that really the concern is about the nedarim that he himself could be mefer. So my kamiflige, what's the machlokas of Meir Savar Adam Rotzah Shetisbazu Ishto Bebezdin? Rabbi Elazar Savar Ein Adam Rotzah Shetisbazu Ishto Bebezdin. The machlokas between the difference between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Elazar is that Rabbi Meir has no problem. Right, Rabbi Meir says that a husband will have no problem going with his wife to Bezdin to be matir and neder. Whereas Rabbi Elazar says, no, a fellow is not going to go with his wife to a bezdin to be matir and neder, and therefore, we're not concerned that he didn't say, oh, if only I would have known that I could have taken my wife to bezdin to be matir the neder. No, he wouldn't have taken his wife to the bezdin anyways, and therefore, what Rabbi Elazar is concerned about is the neder that he himself can be mefer. Maybe he won't know that he can be mefer. Rabbi Meir says that, right, that's Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Meir says that, no, the neder that he himself can be mefer, he knows he can be mefer. Okay, fine. So now Rabbi Yehuda comes out of nowhere, and he says that that there was a story in Tzidon. Some guy made a neder that he's going to divorce his wife, and if not, he's not going to eat pizza anymore. So, and they said, okay, he can get remarried. They can get remarried. My Tana de Katani Maise. So which the Gemara says, I don't understand. What were we talking about in the Mishnah up until now that made it appropriate to bring such a Maise? This Maise is about a fellow who made a neder about getting divorced. Up until now, we've been talking about the wife making nedarim about pizza. So, my Tana de Katani Maise, Chasoy Mechso Vachi Katane. So the Mishnah is missing a few words. This is really how you got to learn it. When do we say everything that we've talked about, that that they can't get remarried if they're nedarim? Kishenodra he, that's when she's the one making the nedarim. Aval nodar iu, but if he is the one making the nedarim, yachzir, they can get remarried. V'amar Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, and in that context it says Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda Maise nami b'tzidon, that there was a maise in Tzidon be'echad she'omar le'ishto, a fellow said to his wife, konam im eni megarshich, right, that if we don't get divorced, I'm not eating peace anymore, i.e. we're getting divorced. Vegersha, and he divorced her. Beitir lo chacham she'achzireno, and the rabbis permitted them to get remarried. Mipnei tikkun olam. We're going to see what this tikkun olam is. My konam, what kind of neder is he making? Amr Ravuna says, Ravuna, but Amr, you're also koperish ba'olam alai im eni megarshich. He says, if we don't get divorced, I'm no longer eating pizza. So basically, he basically makes a neder that they're going to get divorced, and if not, he's not eating pizza. Fine. Veitirulo she'achzirena, and they allowed them to get remarried. Pshita. Obviously, why shouldn't they be able to get remarried? Right? We said that if she makes nedarim, so they can't get remarried. What's the problem? If he's making nedarim, they can get remarried. Ma'adatema, I may have thought ligzar mishum de Reb Nosson, that we should make a gezeira because of Reb Nosson the Tanya. That we learn in the Brayso, Reb Nosson Omer says Reb Nosson, hanoder kilubon obama, that a fellow who makes nedarim, it's like he builds a bama. How do we explain bama? An unsanctioned altar, an altar outside of the temple, like a private altar outside of the, in your backyard, which only at certain times were you allowed to do. But this is talking about a time that you were not allowed to do that. You built a unsanctioned altar, right? So that's a problem. And further, somebody who makes a neder, it's like he makes an unsanctioned altar, and somebody who then is mekayim is neder, meaning he does what he set out to do. It's even worse. It's as if you then offered a sacrifice on that unsanctioned altar, which is a big problem. So I may have thought that because nedarim are so strongly discouraged, and here he made a neder be'etzim that he's going to divorce his wife, and he went ahead and did it, so it's like he made a bama and offered a korban on it. So I might think that they should be not allowed to get remarried. Kamash Malon, that they can get remarried. Mipnei tikkun olam, because of tikkun olam. My tikkun olam, what does tikkun olam have to do with this fellow making a neder to get divorced? So, Omer of Sheshis Aresha, it's talking about the Resha. That meaning a fellow gets divorced because of Motzi Shemra or because of Nidarim, they can't get remarried because of Tikkun Olam. They were concerned that, well, if down the road he says, oh, I didn't realize that the yentas were wrong, or I didn't realize I could be made for the neder, it's going to create a whole mess. So because of Tikkun Olam, we say you can't get remarried to each other. Ravina Omar L'Olama Seifa. This is a little bit weird, but it says Ravina, no, it's actually talking about the Seifa. It's talking about the guy who makes the neder. V'achikatani ein bazo mipnei tikkun olam. What does Rashi say? Achigam avei itir lo chacham she'achzirenu mipnei tikkun olam shelo nimtza kan le'esor. Okay, that there's no reason to say that it's asur, and therefore it's okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. That there's no. Okay, yeah, I know it's weird, right? Okay, I guess it's the way of the world. There's no issue here, I guess. Is that what it's saying? I don't know. It's kind of weird. Okay, it says the Mishnah, Amotzi es ishto mishum ailonis. Okay, so similarly, a fellow who divorces his wife because she's an Ilonis, right? We've learned about Ilonis. Ilonis is a woman who's incapable, right? Physically incapable. She has never reached puberty. She's not able to have children. So they get divorced. So Amotias Ishto Mishum Ilonis Rabbi Yehuda Omer Lo Yachzir. So Rabbi Yehuda says that they can't get remarried. Okay. Chacham say that they can get remarried. So what it seems like, and the Gemara is going to ask about this, is it seems like Rabbi Yehuda's position is that he's concerned about kilkula, right? That if they get divorced and then she ends up marrying somebody else and having kids, he's going to say, what? If I would have known, I would never would have divorced you, and then the kids end up being mamzerim. Whereas the Chacham are not concerned about this. Niseis la'acher. Now, if she got married to another fellow and they have children, and now she goes back to her original husband and say, I want my ksuba, I want you to pay me my ksuba, because I think, right, I think that we learned that, I think Ilonis doesn't get, right, she wouldn't get her ksuba, but then she comes back and he says, yeah, but I'm not an Ilonis, I deserve my ksuba. So Omer Rabbi Yehuda says, he says to her, look, better that you should just keep quiet, because if you persist trying to get your ksuba, I'll just say that, well, if I knew that you could have had kids, I never would have divorced you in the first place, which would make a whole mess for you with your second husband and your kids. Okay. So it says the Gemara, the Meimer de Rabbi Yehuda chayish l'kukula v'abanu lo chayish l'kukula. So effect the Gemara, one second. Rabbi Meir is saying over, what? Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is saying over here that by the Ilonis, if they get divorced because she's an Ilonis, they can never get remarried. How come? Well, because we're concerned that if she gets remarried to somebody else and she has kids, then he'll say, oh, if I would have known that you could have kids, I never would have gotten divorced. And it'll create a whole mess. So Rabbi Yehuda seems to be concerned about kilkula, whereas the rabbis say, yachzir. The rabbis say, no, they can get remarried, they're not concerned. Sounds like they're not concerned about kilkula. Okay, so again, so the name of Rabbi Yehuda, chayish l'kulkula, v'abanim l'chayish l'kulkula. Does that mean that Rabbi Yehuda is concerned about kilkula and that's why they cannot get remarried? And the Chacham are not concerned about kilkula. But if we look at the previous Mishnah, by the Nidarim, we seem to see the opposite. The Tanan, as we learn in the Mishnah, Hamotzi as ishto mishum shema lo yachzir mishum neder lo yachzir. The Tanakama says that a fellow who gets divorced because the Yentis are saying that she's having an affair, or because she's making nidarim, they can never get remarried because we're concerned about kilkula. Because we're concerned about that, if the rumors are wrong, or if if he finds out later that he could have undone the neder, so then it'll create problems for, if she got remarried. Whereas the Rabbi Yehuda is saying, no, it depends. With the nedarim, if a lot of people know about it, so then they can't get remarried. If not a lot of people know about it, then they can get remarried. He's concerned about, he's not concerned about, but he's not concerned about kilkula. So we see that in the previous Mishnah, it's the rabbis who are concerned about kilkula. And Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned about kilkula, yet over here, we seem to be saying fakert. Rabbi Yehuda is concerned about kilkula by the Ilonis, and the rabbis nisht. So Amar Rabbanan chayish l'kulkula. So we see in the previous Mishnah that it's the rabbis who are chayish l'kulkula. Rabbi Yehuda lo chayish l'kulkula, and Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned about kilkula. Amar Shmuel ipuch. So Shmuel says, okay, just flip around this Mishnah and say fakert, that a fellow who gets divorced because his wife is an Ilonis, so the Chachamim say they cannot get remarried. Rabbi Yehuda says that they can. But one second, if we go weiter in the Mishnah, what happens? If she gets married to somebody else and they have children, and she goes back to her original husband and says, look, you see, I can't have children. I want my ksuba from you. So Amar Yehuda says, that he says to her, look, you should probably just keep quiet, because, if you continue to request your ksuba, I'll just say, look, if I would have known that you could have had children in the first place, I never would have gotten divorced, and that would create a whole mess for you. Which means that Rabbi Yehuda is concerned about kukula. Meaning, so in the previous Mishnah, we said Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned about kukula. in this Mishnah by the Ilonis, Rabbi Yehuda seems to be concerned about Kilkula. We said, no, he's not. Flip it around. It's the Rabbanan who are concerned about Kilkula, not Rabbi Yehuda. But if you go weiter in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda seems to be concerned once again, right? When she's asking for a ksuba, once again he proves his point that he's concerned about Kilkula, that retroactively he can invalidate the get. So Nami Ipo. Gemara says, well, flip that around as well. Say that it's not Rabbi Yehuda, it's the rabbis. Abaye Omer Lo Olam Lo Tipo. Abaye says, look, no, really don't flip anything around. Our Mishnah over here by the Ilonis is definitive. That Rabbi Yehuda says that if a couple gets divorced because she's an Ilonis, they can never get remarried out of concern of Kilkula. And that's consistent in this Mishnah. Now, how do you understand the previous Mishnah where Rabbi Yehuda says that if it's a neder that was in front of a bunch of people, then they can't get remarried, but if it was not in front of a bunch of people, then they can get remarried? Rabbi Yehuda, so Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rab Meir and like Rabbi Elazar, that when Rabbi Yehuda says that when Rabbi Yehuda says that a neder that was not made publicly, so they can get remarried, and he's not concerned about kilkul, because he holds like both Rab Meir and Rabbi Elazar, and therefore kilkul is not actually a concern. So when it comes to a neder that would have to be brought before a chacham for a hataras nedarim, he holds like Rabbi Elazar, who we saw earlier says that ein adam rotza shetisbaza ishto bebezdin, that a fellow would not want to go with his wife to bezdin to do hataras nedarim, and therefore there's no concern of him saying that, oh, if only I would have known that I could have gone with her to bezdin. And b'she'enu tzarich, and a neder that he could be made for himself, so like Reb Meir, holds like Reb Meir, who says that if it's a neder that he can be made for himself, then he knows that he can be made for, and there's no, we're not concerned that later on he's going to say, oh, if only I would have known I could be made for. He knows that he can be made for. And when it comes to a neder, that was made in public, it can't be permitted at all. So there is no concern. So Rabbi Yehuda is concerned about kilkula in principle, but it happens to be that in the previous Mishnah by the nedarim there actually was no such concern. If the neder was made in public, well then there's no hafar or atar to be spoken of. If it was not made in public, well, if it's a neder that requires a chacham, well, he holds like Rabbi Elazar, who says that he's not going to go with his wife anyways to bezin. And if it's a neder that does not require chakiras chacham, that he can be made for himself, he holds like Rabbi Meir, who says, well, he knows that he can be made for it himself. So there is actually, in practice, no concern that he's going to come later on, according to Rabbi Yehuda, and say, oh, if only I would have known, we wouldn't have gotten divorced. So there is, so Rabbi Yehuda does hold of kilkul, but it happens to be in the previous Mishnah, kilkul wasn't a concern. So now Rabbi Meir says, okay, so Rava says, okay, so you've answered Rabbi Yehuda and shown how he's consistent with both Mishnayos, but what about the Chachamim? The Chachamim in the first Mishnah seem to be concerned about Kilkula, but over here they're not. Ela Amar Rava rather says, Rabbi Yehuda lo kasha kedishanina. So Rabbi Yehuda is no problem, as we've explained. The Rabbanan lo kasha, and also the rabbis are also not, it's no problem. Man Chacham, Reb Meir, that the Chacham, who are the Chachamim? Reb Meir, the Amr Ba'inon T'nai Kaful, V'achav Ma'eskinim B'dilo, Kafel T'noi. That Reb Meir's opinion is that you need a T'nai Kaful. Who can tell me what a T'nai Kaful is? A T'nai Kaful is that a condition, a T'nai, I said I wasn't going to look for words, but I can't not look for words. Not a condition? I guess it's not as a condition. I don't know. A condition, what's the word I'm thinking of? I have no clue. A condition needs to be explicit, right? If this, then this. If not, right? If, so, the source for that is from the Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, right? When they went, they said that they wanted to go to Ever HaYarden, they wanted the land of the Ever Yarden, and the condition was, look, it was explicit. If you go and fight along with the Yidden, then yes, you can have the land of the Ever Yarden. Now, we have to be explicit. And if you don't, stipulation, that's what I'm thinking of. And if you don't fight, then you won't get it. You need both sides of the stipulation, both sides of the coin. If you do it, then yes, you will get it. And if you don't do it, no, you will not get it. And if you only say, if you do it, you will get it, that's not a valid t'nai. You can't just say that implies that if you don't do it, you won't get it. No, it needs to be explicit. So therefore, in the first Mishnah, where the rabbis say that we're concerned about kilkulo, that is, I guess in that case he was explicit, right? That I'm divorcing you because of, because of the Yentis told me that you had an affair, and if you didn't have an affair, then I guess we're not divorced. But in this case, by the Ilonis, he didn't say that. He didn't say that I'm divorcing you because you're an Ilonis, and if it turns out you're not an Ilonis, then I want to stay married. He didn't say that, and therefore we're not concerned about kilkul. All right, very good. Friends, that was the Memvav of Masechta Gittin. Hope you enjoyed. So the first Mishnah we talked about a fellow who's motzi his wife because of Shemar, because of Nedarim. We saw two reasons why, two possible concerns. One is because of kilkul, as we were just discussing, that maybe it'll turn out that he didn't really want to get divorced in the first place. The other concern is that, no, simply we just don't want that B'nos Yisrael should be making Nedarim and having rumors about them, about affairs. So therefore, if you get divorced for these things, it's final. Okay, fine. We saw other sort of details about Nedarim. We saw the concept of, right, in other motzah shetisbaz ishto bebezdin. That Rabbi Lazar holds of that. Rabbi Meir is not concerned about that. And we got the second Mishnah where we also saw a similar concept regarding if a fellow gets divorced because he thinks his wife is an Ilonis. Friends, that was Daf Memvav of Masechta Gittin. I hope you enjoy. Peace out.